Today we're going to be doing color grading, and this is going to be a beginner level tutorial, so it doesn't matter if you just started yesterday or if you're still planning to start. You can save this video and watch it later when you do actually start. And we're going to go over the basics of color grading, and I'm also going to give you a bonus, which is to be able to isolate or separate your subject from the background. Now generally we do this using flash photography, but if you're watching this video, the odds are you already took the pictures and you cannot go back to fix all of this. So let's get straight into it. So this is the image we have to work with, and the first thing I always like to do is the really simple corrections that you can do. And so I'm talking about just this. And the second easiest thing you can do is remove chromatic aberration and use a profile correction. Just watch what it does. And you see that this is already doing a lot for the image. You can watch the before and after, and you see how much change has been done in just these 2 clicks. Now, if you are just starting out, the odds are you don't really know what colors do in specific images and you're trying to figure this out. One very easy way to color grade is to simply change the profile here to landscape. This already does so much for your image without you necessarily having to do a lot, and I find it a very convenient way to edit most photos, and it generally speeds up your workflow. Obviously, it will not work in all situations, so be careful where you do it and know how to use it. Now we're going to go to our basic correction, and since we applied profile correction, now our image is overexposed, whereas at first it was underexposed. And so we're going to drop down the exposure a bit, and we're going to bring up the contrast. This is the image we have right now. You can see before and after. You notice that a lot of information has been reintroduced into the image. And so this is what our image looks like right now. You can see the before and after. Now, this image is not the sharpest, so of course we would want to sharpen the image. And this is where sharpening comes into play. We can sharpen it by a reasonable amount, and we can also denoise the image. The good thing about the latest versions of Photoshop and Lightroom is they offer really good denoise options, and so the AI is going to do this. I'm just going to skip over the whole process because it's not fun watching this thing have to waste so much time. So yeah, I'm going to skip over this. Great, so now we have our image that has been sharpened and denoised, and you notice that the image looks a lot better than before. And since we are doing a beginner level tutorial, we're only going to use the color mixer and the calibration tool. When I'll be doing the advanced color grades, we will use over, of course, the color grading section, but for now we're only going to use this. Now our model is dark skinned, meaning she has more of red, orange and yellows in her skin tone. But this image is tricky because she's also wearing all those 3 colors, so any changes we make to her face would affect the entire image. And so you have to be mindful of what you do or what you change. And so we're going to do very tiny changes here so that we don't ruin the whole image. And we want to push the reds into the oranges into the reds, and push the yellows a bit lower. And what this does is this evens out her skin complexion. And same thing for the saturation. We want the reds to be less saturated, but we want the yellows to be more saturated, and same with the yellows. And so this changes the skin tone, and there's a significant increase in the richness of the skin tone. Maybe you would not see it directly, but it's a very subtle change, but it has improved her skin tone, made a richer shade of dark skin, and it's really beautiful as the model. And while we are here, obviously we also want to touch the other aspects of the image that don't only have to do with the model, but also the background, for example. And in this case, I would like to have my skies a bit blue. So just changing this already. and the level of saturation. And so you already see our image before, our image after. It looks a bit more exciting right now. And we can also obviously play with the luminance. It's not really something I like playing with that much, but for the sake of this video, or you can make it a very dark sky, but if you push too far, you notice a lot of artifacts start forming, so you have to take that in mind. And this is already our image. You notice that this has been color graded, but it has been done very fast. And we notice also that our subject is not really isolated from the background. Although she stands so far away from it, you notice that she's not really pulled out. And so what I'll do at this point is simply to create a mask, and we want to select our subject. In this case, I want my subject to be more visible, so we just increase the exposure on the subject by a tiny bit more. And if we decrease the contrast and bring down the highlight so that it's not blown out, the shadows on her face can be fixed with this immediately. And the whites don't really need much. We always bring down the blacks to make it a bit more realistic. And so already compare before and after. Great. And we're back to this. And while we are here now, there's obviously more we can do. What we're going to do now is to come to the calibration bar, and this is where the final touches to the color grading will be done. And so I want my shadows slightly more tint of red. And remember that we push the reds into oranges, so if you're increasing the red, then you're indirectly increasing the oranges, but now you don't want them to be overly saturated. I remember I have to only make subtle changes because our model is wearing all three of those colors and orange, so it's a bit scary to work with this, but it's possible. You just have to be very mindful of what you're doing. So this is the before, this is the after, this is before, this is after. And you can look at it side by side. You can cycle between it, and this is what you have. So I hope this tutorial was quick and straight to the point enough for you. And try out the settings, improve on them, do any changes you feel like you want to do, and tell me how the results turned out for you in the comment section. Have a great day.